All right, everyone, now it's time for some analysis. Of course, the post-midterm Georgia runoff results are in. Herschel Walker has been defeated by Raphael Warnock. It was pretty likely that that would be the outcome. There was always a chance, a possibility that Herschel Walker would manage to get just over 50%. He did come close, though. I would remind people, for all of those that are crowing about this great Dem Party victory, you do realize, number one, that the incumbent governor there, Republican, Kemp, Trump-backed, by the way, and Uniparty-backed, he's a missing link candidate at best, stomped Stacey Abrams, so she's out of a job. She's, not going to be governor, which is good. It's good news out of Georgia. Despite the fact that you casted Herschel Walker off as a perverted criminal residing in another state, in Texas, his primary residence, technically speaking, that is true, with a very limited vocabulary and limited intelligence, he managed to come at about 2.6 behind Raphael Warnock. Late deciders seem to have broken for Herschel Walker, among some demographics, actually. Now, here's the spin that you're seeing right now. The Unipartyists, Bolton, etc., are all blaming Trump. Well, Donald Trump is clearly to blame for this, for having endorsed Herschel Walker. It's interesting because Lindsey Graham and many others were trotted on down there to campaign for him. They openly told Trump not to even show up and campaign, yet they want to blame him for the end result, because he decided to make an endorsement in the first place. I'd say he did pretty well considering the demographics there. How close the race was, I think that's definitely not exactly a loss. I like how they're dovetailing that in with all of the other MAGA candidates that were shafted by the GOP, as though it was their fault that they lost when Mitch McConnell took millions and millions of dollars, shoveled it into non-competitive races like the one in Alaska, where the GOP literally could not lose because both candidates were from the GOP, to try to prop up neocon Murkowski while ignoring Blake Masters and many other people. Herschel Walker was one of them. I like how they're saying, well, Donald Trump tried to do fundraising for Herschel Walker, but when you donated, most of the money went to Donald J. Trump. As though Herschel Walker didn't have his own fucking campaign page open. Notably, not one of them is mentioning something very similar that happened with a different group within the GOP. And that's the Unipartyists. They had a Herschel Walker donation page too. 90 cents out of the dollar didn't go to Herschel Walker. So, pot calling the kettle black. Yeah, Trump grifted off of Herschel Walker's run. Absolutely. And politicians do this on a constant basis. We've set up the site, so we're getting most of the revenue, but he's still getting part of it, so we're still supporting the candidate. The GOP did exactly the same thing while also limiting funding in some of these races. They weren't gung-ho for Herschel Walker either, because he was endorsed by Trump. If Trump had said, well, I think Herschel Walker is a moron, fucking Mitch McConnell would have been down there in person every weekend. And you know it, and I know it. And he still, in the end, would have lost. Especially since the Libertarian candidate down there was siphoning votes partially from Democratic forces, then naturally, they're not going to default to backing Herschel Walker in the runoff election. Nonetheless, he came close enough so that it's technically a squeaker. It wasn't even a 3-point gap. Now then, let's analyze what happens from here. This means that the Democrats have 51 seats in the Senate. They now have an actual majority instead of a 50-50 with Kamala's tiebreaker. They can continue forming committees and reigning over them. For all other intents and purposes, the Democrats are getting way goddamn ahead of themselves and really making a risky play with pissing off Manchin and Sinema. None of these people apparently can do math. The fact is you have 51 votes in the Senate. What happens if Manchin and Sinema both decide to side with the Republicans? You're acting as though it'll be 49-49, so Kamala still gets the tiebreaker vote. That's not what happens. They might vote literally with the Republicans. One might vote with them, the other abstains. Well, then the Republicans carry whatever that motion is by 50-49. The main advantage that they get is that now Chucky Schumer gets to maintain the committees that they form new ones without too much of a hassle, although in-party procedure still plays a role. They're not going to be able to get rid of the filibuster. You've already had at least 4 Democratic senators, not just Manchin and Sinema. Feinstein, she'll be out pretty soon. She's on her last leg, it seems, mentally. And others have already vowed that they will never vote to undo the filibuster. Now, if anything, Manchin and Sinema become the dream team. Instead of one of them being able to lord over the Dems in the Senate, now they just have to team up. Now, as Razorfist has pointed out, Sinema is not a principled centrist or a lesser liberal Democrat or anything like that. She's an egotist, self-serving. That means she likes power. What better power than for her and Manchin to get together and strangulate the Dem agenda and force them to give them concessions? And if you eliminate the filibuster, can you do that? No, of course not. It'd be very, very simple for them to just pay Romney off or something at that point, or John Cornyn or somebody like that. Lindsey Graham himself, maybe. Maybe even the bitch McConnell, the one that wants to give money to the legacy media to prop them up because they can't do anything right. It makes a lot of sense, especially including that in a budgetary deal that has to do with defense spending, of course. I don't think that this is actually going to be quite so meaningful as the Democrats getting ahead of themselves think. You've also got to grapple with the House that's controlled by the GOP. So other than judicial nominees and appointments and things like that, and you still need to have both Manchin and Sinema and every other Democrat hold rank, other than that, you don't really gain that big of an advantage. Yeah, it would have been more advantageous for, MAGA, etc., if Herschel Walker had won. But is it a disaster that leads to the death of the Republic? I'm sure you'll get such hyperbolic takes over the next 24 hours by a lot of commentators who don't like the Democratic Party. I'm just not seeing the black pill at the moment. To put your finger down your throat and vomit up the black pill and take the clank pill instead. Hypercaffeinated, as always. That's about all. Peace out.